We'll be looking at the results from a moderation analysis with a categorical predictor and a continuous predictor. And we're looking at the situation where we want to predict attitude based on the exposure to an ad campaign, and we want to know if there's a difference in the status of the person that we're looking at, and the two categories for that status is either smoker or non-smoker. So essentially you want to know if the ad campaign is effective in the attitude for the smokers and the non-smokers. We do have to know what the values are for the categories. So if we go back to our data file for a second, then we can see that status 2 has non-smokers and smokers, where 0 is indicated for the non-smokers and 1 is indicated for the smokers. That means that process will use the 0 value as the baseline. So essentially what we are seeing here is that for exposure the slope is minus 0.16, and that indicates that that's the 0 situation where essentially we have the non-smokers, and that for the smokers this is the difference between the baseline in the slope that we find here. So let's first look at the test if this slope is significant, and that's done with the t-test, and we see that the t-test is significant at the 0.05 level. And we also see the lower and upper bound for the confidence interval, which does not contain a 0 value of the effect. So both indicate that there's a significant effect. Finally, the interaction term is essentially the added difference between the baseline, the smoking category, and the interaction. So this is essentially the difference that's on top of that. And it essentially indicates that if there is an interaction, that means that the slopes are different. And this interaction is also tested, again here with the t-value and the p-value, and it indicates in this case that there is a difference in the slopes. And we can find the difference in these slopes by looking at the effect down here, because essentially the conditional effects of the vocal predictor at the value of the moderators essentially indicates that if we have the status 0, what is the slope that we have for our regression model? That is minus 0.16. So this is essentially saying the non-smokers have this effect, and if the status is 1, the effect is this. So essentially adding up the different beta coefficients for your regression model, that's what's shown here. And this is also tested with a t-test, and the confidence intervals are also shown. Both are significant in the slopes, and the interaction was also significant. To visualize this, we could use the code that we indicated that needed to be generated. So putting this in a syntax file and running it will generate this graph. If we double click on the graph and indicate that we want to show the fit lines for the different subgroups, in this case we have 2, we see the slopes for the 2 groups that we have, and these slopes, the values of the slopes correspond to what we see in the effect size for the non-smokers and the smokers.